Howdy, howdy, and welcome to Mo's World, the Baseball Podcast. We're excited to bring you another episode where we chat about baseball like a group of friends hanging out at the bar.
Awesome!
And your comments are important to us, so please feel free to share them. If you enjoy the podcast, spread the word to your friends. This is our first episode of Season 2. And we want to express a big thank you to all our loyal listeners for your support. For those that are new here, thanks for joining us. Stick around as Season 2 will have some great episodes. We hope you enjoy the show. Alrighty. We are talking about Greg Maddux. Would Greg Maddux even be drafted in today's Analytical Major League Baseball? That's the question of the day. And if someone out there is not familiar with Greg Maddux, once again, I urge you to visit baseballreference.com and go to school learning about Greg Maddux. Well, to determine if Greg Maddux would be drafted in today's Analytical Baseball, I guess we got to consider several factors that have evolved in the game, particularly the focus on analytics, velocity, and pitching styles. So the evolution of the pitching metric. That sounds like a dirty word to me. In recent years, Major League Baseball has increasingly relied on advanced metrics just to evaluate player performance. These metrics encompass not only traditional statistics like earned run average, and whip now, that's walks plus hits per inning pitched, but also more sophisticated data such as spin rate, launch angle, and expected batting average. Teams are now favoring pitchers who can achieve high strikeout rates and throw with significant velocity. Now, Greg Maddux was renowned for his exceptional control and his command, as well as his ability to outthink hitters rather than simply overpowering them. During his prime years, his fastball velocity was often below the league average. In an era where analytics heavily favored pitchers who can throw hard and consistently miss bats, Maddox's style may be undervalued. Now, taking a look at Greg Maddux' Hall of Fame career, he was a 4-time Cy Young winner. He was involved in the 1995 World Series. He was a 4-time ERA title champ, an 8-time All-Star, and he fielded his position as he won 18 Gold Gloves. Now, Greg Maddux led in 65 categories in his career. Wow, that is how a Hall of Famer is defined. Now, we talk about consistency and how a pitcher can impact his team. Take a look at Greg Maddux, what he accomplished. He had over 30 starts in 19 of 23 years. Holy crap. Talk about consistency. He was probably the most dominant pitcher over his long career in modern baseball times. And once again, let's define the modern era of baseball from 1960 to today. Now, he had 11 seasons with the Atlanta Braves, and they pretty much defined his career. He was 194 and 88 with a 2.63 ERA. He averaged 34 starts while averaging 224 innings pitched with the Braves. That alone is grounds for instant admission to the Hall of Fame. And in case you are curious, Greg Maddux was voted into the Hall of Fame in 2014. He was named on 555 out of the 571 ballots. My question is, how the hell could he have been left off so many? That's the question I ask. Okay, so The importance of velocity. Today, Major League Baseball pitchers, well, they're often evaluated based on their ability to pitch at high velocity. Now, many teams have embraced a throw hard philosophy that, takes priority over precision. And this shift has led to fewer pitches emphasizing accuracy and pitch selection. Those were qualities that defined Greg Maddux's career. During Maddox's early years, the velocity of his four-seam fastball reached speeds of around 90, 92, which today would be considered below average. Now, given the current focus on high-velocity pitches, I wonder, and is it possible that scouts might overlook Maddox if he was around today? Just because his fastball did not reach elite levels or even league average. This raises the question of whether analytics may overlook true talent in baseball. Now, the role of the finesse pitcher. Well, there's still successful finesse pitchers today, but not that many of them. Kyle Hendricks, Nestor Cortez, even Max Scherzer in his later career. They were becoming increasingly rare in a landscape dominated by power pitching. Even Justin Verlander, he expressed concerns how pitchers like Greg Maddux would perform under today's scrutiny. He said, would they even let him do what he did? Probably not. Now, this sentiment highlights a broader concern that teams may fail to recognize the value of a pitcher who excels at controlling games through strategy rather than sheer power. And, that's friggin' scary. Now, even the drafting philosophy has changed. If Greg Maddux was eligible for the draft today, it's pretty likely that he would face skepticism from teams focused primarily on velocity and strikeouts rather than overall effectiveness and strategic pitching prowess. He might not be drafted, but you know what? He still had an impressive college performance. He was a standout at UCLA. It's conceivable that he wouldn't be selected as highly as he was in 1984, where he was taken in the second round, because teams may, look at other attributes over his. They probably wouldn't even look at his command and intelligence on the mound. So if Greg Maddux were eligible for the draft today, he might face prejudice from teams that, they look for velocity and strikeouts over overall effectiveness and strategic pitching ability. Now, that's the thing that makes you really wonder about this analytic shit, because he was such a dominant pitcher of his day. Now, today's pitches, excitement happens on the field, right? And one can only wish for more of it. The analytics behind removing starters who can't get through the lineup 3 times, that's influenced by the idea that they simply aren't allowed to do so. Now, a few years ago, there was a saying about the modern player: let the kids play. Remember that one? Well, let the pitchers pitch. Holy crap. Pitchers are not being protected and limiting them to 100 pitches. I don't know what that's all about, but, your arm doesn't fall off at throwing 105 pitches, 110 pitches. Take Steven Strasburg of the Washington Nationals, for instance. The Nationals babied him for years. They attempted to control his pitch count to minimize the risk of injuries. Yet he still broke down, big time. They got to learn to pace themselves. It's not necessary to throw at maximum effort on every pitch. Instead, they should focus on control and movement. But the modern-day pitcher seems to have gotten away from that. It's okay for Blake Snell to walk 6-7 guys in a game, but he doesn't make it past the 5th inning. I don't know. I don't get it. And that seems like teams have made the concerted effort to remove starting pitches early in the games. But, if that's the case, Why are starting pitchers still being paid $30 to $50 million per season? Bullpens typically last about 2 years before they get burned out. That forces teams to seek fresh arms and reestablish their pitching staff. And that's the modern current cycle in baseball. Is this the best approach? Only time is going to tell with that. Until a team manages to try something different and win the World Series. All teams copy each other, and they copy the strategy of each other, especially the one that just won the championship. So my hope is that the next World Series winner will have a starting rotation that regularly pitches into the 7th inning, combined with a strong bullpen that can effectively close out games using just 2 pitches. Now, a return to fundamentals of batters making more contact, advancing runners, creating excitement on the base paths, that's what we need. One can only hope. The current analytics-driven approach of removing starters because they can't navigate the lineup 3 times is only a result of they're not allowed to. Teams ought to look at how Greg Maddux built a Hall of Fame career with what some perceive as today's current inferior velocity. Now, I'm joking, of course, but that label for Maddox, he had enough velocity to make the ball move and deceive hitters. Which, isn't that the essence of the game? Now, it's not just about throwing 105 miles per hour, especially if it's a straight line. Eventually, any major league hitter will learn to time it and hit it hard. More deception and movement at the major league level is what we need. Will we see this change? Perhaps when teams realize investing in contracts for pitchers like Jacob deGrom and Blake Snell isn't worth it if they can't stay on the mound consistently. Seriously, I hear this offseason that Jacob deGrom he's all set for the season. He's ready to go. Holy shit, I forgot he even was in the major league still. How many years has it been? Has he even thrown a freaking quarter of a season with the Rangers? They signed him to that huge contract? It's crazy, right? So, Greg Maddux had qualities that would probably be valuable in any era. Incredible control and a way of being ahead of the hitters. His lack of velocity and his reliance on finesse probably could hinder his draft prospect in today's analytical Major League Baseball environment. So it's likely that Greg Maddux would face challenges being drafted as highly as he once was, and if he was entering the league today. Those are probably the sheer facts. And for that reason alone, it's stupid to put so much faith in analytics. Now, analytics should be used only as a tool, not the end-all result in finding a prospect. Baseball is a game. It's not a science. We should all be concerned that a talent like Greg Maddux may not get the opportunity in today's age of baseball. And that's a loss for all of us because his games, he dissected guys, and the games, you probably wouldn't need a pitch clock if everybody pitched like Greg Maddux. He pitched under 2-hour games, regularly. It was ridiculous. So that gives you something to think about as far as Greg Maddux. Look him up, look at his career, and just be marveled that you're looking at somebody who played as recently as he did, and he was such a dominant player. Retiring in 2008, he played 23 years. And, the innings pitch, we know about the innings pitch thing. That's ridiculous. It was just back in 1996, 1995, that he led the league with, 260, 70 innings pitched. We're not going to see that, obviously. But look at his categories. Look at how he survived, and maybe you see some old tape of him. So that pretty much concludes our podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed our first episode of season 2. We got a lot planned for the second season of Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Don't forget, we are still in our off-season schedule. We release new episodes 2 times per month until spring training. And they're released the first Friday of the month and the last Friday of the month, each about 20 minutes long. So, thank you for listening. Once again, spread the word, subscribe, do whatever you need to do to keep in mind. Our next episode will be on January 31st, and we'll be discussing our first year of the podcast. In the meantime, ask yourself, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.